What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 40 of Control the Narrative. What a fucking week it's been. We can finally exhale. The Portland Trail Blazers have made it into the NBA playoffs. They were one Karis LeVert shot from going home. They were just every fucking game coming down to the wire. So stressful, so tough to watch. But at the end of the day, they're in. They are up against the number one seed, Los Angeles Lakers. It is Melo versus LeBron, Blazers, Lakers. And this episode is dedicated solely to kind of what we have seen over the past week, and then also this first round matchup, because the narratives in both direction can really change, whether it's LeBron or whether it's Melo, depending on what happens in this first round and beyond. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to bring in my guy, Evan, right now. So here he is. Evan, what's going on, dude?
It's going well. How about you?
Doing good, man.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, thanks for taking time out. First off, I know I asked you today, so kind of like a short turnaround, but you were telling me you got notes and you seem ready. So looking forward to it. So for people who don't know you, who don't follow you on Instagram, Twitter, anything like that, why don't you give us like a 60-second summary of your fandom? Like, you could take this in basketball, Melo, or just like how you got into being passionate about all this shit.
All right. First off, I just want to say, if anyone sees, this is a Houston Melo jersey, and not as a supporting Houston sign. It's more of a fuck you to Daryl Morey and D'Antoni. So just wanted to get that out of the way. But I'm 17 now, and I started watching Carmelo when I was about 9-10 years old in like the 2012 Knicks season, and immediately just fell in love with the way he played the game. And it was like, the way he scores is an art. And it just, the jab series, the post game, that post fadeaway is my favorite shot in all of basketball. And it started off as just inherited Knicks fandom into a Carmelo first fandom. So I always say, until Carmelo is out of the league, I'm not a Knicks fan. I'm wherever Carmelo is. And it's just great to see him playing like this.
Yeah. So speaking of him playing like this, like I just kind of teased in that intro, the Blazers went 6-2 in the bubble. They made up 4 games against the Memphis Grizzlies in those 8 games to get the 8th seed. And then they just beat the Memphis Grizzlies in the first ever NBA's play-in tournament to get that 8th seed. Who knows if they're going to do it moving forward? We kind of have no idea what's going to happen next season or anything. So just want to get your reaction, your thoughts to what you saw out of the team, what you saw out of Melo, and all that, just based on the bubble games and this kind of the seeding games and that play-in game.
I think Portland's playing incredible, and not, of course, the story is Damian Lillard and his historic run right now, but they would not be where they are if it weren't for everyone on that team. For Melo, McCollum, Nurkic, and even Whiteside. I wasn't a big fan of that, like his perimeter defense. I think everyone knows even though he leads the league in blocks, he struggles in the defensive end in general. But he's been a big part too. Of course, Gary fucking Trent has been hitting his shots, and they look so much better than they did 5 months ago, and it's incredible to see. And they're not a normal 8 seed. It's not. I don't think of it like an 8-1 matchup, and if Portland wins, it's like a huge upset. Right. This is a 4 seed with Nurkic back, and the way
at least
4-3. So I'm so excited.
Yeah. My kind of reaction to the games we saw was obviously like stress. We know that if you think about it, every single game the Blazers have won, not only in the bubble, but this season, they've had to have won. Like, if they lose any of the games, and we'll go back to that game in Toronto where Melo hits the game winner. We can go back to The game versus Detroit where Melo put up 32 and hit the dagger. If they lose any of those games, they are a full game worse, and the Phoenix Suns were playing the Memphis Grizzlies in the playing game, which is crazy to think about. Like, just the fact that they needed every single win just to play in the play-in tournament. They got them, and then that playing game was just very fitting. I was watching the game live on Periscope with my guys Kyle and DeMar, and what Kyle said was so true. He said, we're watching the same game over and over. We're watching the Blazers come out. They get some sort of a lead. Usually they go into halftime with a 6-point lead, an 8-point lead, 10, whatever it is. They come out the third quarter. They just get fucking steamrolled by whoever it is. And then they go into the fourth quarter down, and they're down 6 with 4 minutes left. And then they make this comeback. So every game is the same, which it's been so frustrating to watch, but they've won, so I just don't know how much we can complain about those games when they went 6-2, and really 7-2 when you include the playing game.
I find it so fitting because I remember in the 2013-14 season, I think the Knicks, they were the 9th seed by like a half game short, and I just remember being like, one more game they could have won, and then we could have seen an 8th seed, and it's just to see them come back, see Carmelo come back. It's just awesome.
There's the Hawks. The Hawks were that 8th seed that year.
I remember. I remember Brooklyn losing a game to them, like in the last stretch, losing to the Hawks, which made them clinch, and we're just like, Brooklyn just wants to be that one team in New York in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I remember the Knicks ended that season on a crazy stretch. Like, they finished maybe like 13-2, or
it was
do you
the
remember?
Same thing. Exactly.
Do you remember what it was?
I remember a 6-game win streak in like March, April.
Yeah.
For a team that was like under 500.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find it real quick because I feel like that's kind of an important thing, just in terms of here it is, game log. We're at the 13-14 Knicks page. You just bring that up and a little bit off track, but now I'm curious. So they won their last 4, then they lost to
Cleveland, right?
3.
They lost
the last win was versus Toronto. They actually beat Brooklyn, Chicago, Toronto again. They lost to Miami, lost to Washington, but they finished 7-2, 8-3 if you want to take it back that far. And they went on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-game winning streak.
It was 8. Wow.
Towards the end of that season. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, you just and I remember there was some games that year, earlier in the year, where Shumpert had his finger on Paul George's elbow, and it got called for the foul.
Ooh, it's so funny how specifically we remember all these games. I remember they came out. I remember they were up like 13-0 that game, and I was like, oh, so. And also that was the season Chandler did the reverse alley-oop on his head, bounced
in
out.
Orlando.
That was brutal, heartbreaking. And I think Trey Burke also hit like a buzzer beater deep corner 3.
That was the next year. I was at that game, and MSG security had to remove me from the game because I was just sulking in my seat. After Melo put up 45, they were about to go into overtime and all that. But
he hit that bank 3 with like 3 seconds left.
Yep, versus the Jazz. So, speaking of the 13-14 Knicks and all that. But yeah, so overall thoughts of the bubble game. If you could sum it up in one word, I'll sum it up with the word exhale, because we can finally exhale. If you could sum it up with one word, how would you describe it?
Honestly, trust, because just the trust they all had. When Damian Lillard was being doubled, I remember he got backlash from Skip Bayless. I don't know. I'm sure you've seen what Skip's been saying. He was like, he didn't score in the fourth quarter, like in the playing game. But Damian Lillard is so mature and trusts his team so much that he was not trying to do it all when doubled. Right. And that's the difference.
That last game, he had 31 points. I remember thinking to myself, damn, Dame didn't have a good game. He scored 31 points. So that was pretty wild. And I also think, just to put this out there, I think Skip Bayless is almost motivating Damian Lillard so that he can beat LeBron, because we know how Skip feels about LeBron, and he can kind of go off on LeBron. So I feel like there's something to that.
That's honestly a good theory, because I didn't understand, did they have beef before there's something? Because he was going off on Lillard.
I don't know. But anyway, now it is Dame versus LeBron. We're going to say Melo versus LeBron on here because we're controlling the narrative. So Like you said, it's not an average 8 seed. It's not a typical 8 seed. So we'll get into how the Lakers can win, how the Blazers can win, and your prediction. But just overall thoughts. What are you expecting out of this first round matchup, and just what are your feelings towards it?
Well, I'm expecting a competitive series. I'm thinking it's going 6-7 games for sure because I think it really can go either way by how the Lakers or how Portland handles their interior D. Because if they get caught on switches, if they get LeBron, Davis, and like Howard just open looks to the basket, it could be a runaway. But if they make it a shooting game with the inconsistency of LA with their shooters, I think Portland would have an advantage there. So it's really up to how Portland can play defense.
Yeah, fair. I hear you on all that. When I look at this matchup, obviously the first thing I look at is Melo versus LeBron. I know, the narrative out there is, oh, they're brothers and all that stuff. Me personally, I kind of see through LeBron with how he's treated Melo, at least publicly. Privately, obviously, I have no idea. But publicly, the Lakers last year in the summer, they entered free agency with 4 players on the roster. 4. It was LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kuzma, and Caruso. Those are the 4 players on the roster. So they were obviously waiting for Kawhi to see what he was doing. When they didn't get Kawhi, then they went on, this signing rampage. They signed KCP back. They signed JaVale McGee, Danny Green, and all these players. And I remember just thinking, like, fuck, where's Melo at, and what's going on here? So I have a bad taste in my mouth when I think about the Lakers, even though they did sign my boy JR. So great that he's back in the league.
I'm excited to see that. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. And so I have a bad taste in my mouth when I think about the Lakers and LeBron right now. And I just think this could be such a revengeful, symbolic series for Melo. Obviously throughout their entire careers, LeBron has 3 championships. Melo's never been to an NBA final, so LeBron has had a more successful career. I think it's safe to say that. But just the fact that Melo overcame everything that he went through, got on a good team. That team got in the playoffs. Now they're going up against the dude who he's been compared to since day one. The storyline is just crazy. So, yeah, that's my kind of macro, just looking at it at the storylines. But we'll get into it now. So you said you kind of already talked about how the Blazers can win. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you think the Lakers can win? Do you think it's that easy as just give it to LeBron AD and get Dwight open looks and kind of roll number?
Kind of the reverse of what I just said about Portland. It's if they could overpower the interior D of Portland and figure out how to get inside, and especially if they get Nurkic in foul trouble, then that's scary for Portland. Because like I said, with those big bodies that the Lakers have down low, you need Nurkic down there. You need Whiteside to be playing his best defense. So yeah, I think the Lakers game is more get to the hoop, attack the basket.
Fair. Great point. The one thing I was going to say was, so I have 2 things here. I think the Lakers can win the series by, like you said, getting Portland bigs into foul trouble, which I think they should be able to be honest with you. Like Zach Collins, we just heard today, he is out for game 1. So that's huge. Wenyen Gabriel is going to get some minutes. But, yeah, if they get Nurk in foul trouble and if they get Whiteside is going to be a huge piece of this series for Portland. But if they could get those 2 guys in foul trouble where they won't be able to play defense aggressively and, they'll kind of play that defense where, the no-foul defense, just putting their hands up and shit, I think the Lakers will have a huge advantage because who's going to stop LeBron in the paint? Who's going to stop Anthony Davis in the paint? So I'm worried about that. Another thing I'm worried about is, well, not worried about, but the other way I think the Lakers can win this series is if their shooters wake up. Like you said, they've been kind of struggling. Danny Green's been struggling, and they really don't have a ton of shooters. They have Dion Waiters and JR. They're not specifically spot-up shooters. But,
yeah.
Losing Avery Bradley was huge. Rondo isn't a shooter, but those are 2 huge pieces that they're missing. So I think if they are able to hit their threes, and I'm sure they'll get some open looks A, because Portland is fucking terrible on defense right now.
Yeah.
And B, because when LeBron and AD get in the paint, you stop them, let fucking Danny Green beat you, let Alex Caruso beat you, let all those other guys beat you. So I think those are the two ways that the Lakers have a legit shot. Getting the bigs in foul trouble and or their shooters waking up.
Mm-hmm. And I think another thing to say about how the Blazers could win, I think it's honestly a big mix. Obviously there's a huge matchup against the two of the top 5 best players in the league with LeBron and Davis. So everyone has to be doing what they're supposed to. I think it's between Lillard continuing the trust and the playing smart. McCollum shot selection. I think McCollum is so talented, but I think he gets in phases where he gets the ball and he's like, I'm shooting this possession no matter what happens. So I think if that's controlled and if Melo gets his looks, because I think I always was questioning if I was biased or not about Carmelo, but I feel like when he doesn't get his looks in the second half, those are the games that they're losing in the second half. Because there's lots of games he comes out with like 12, 14 in the first half and gets like 2 field goal attempts in the second half total, and then they blow it.
Yep. Great point. So to get to the Blazers side now, I agree with everything you said. For Portland right now, they are probably one of the worst, if not the worst defensive team. But on the other end, they're one of the best, if not the best offensive team.
I think they're putting up the most points in the bubble.
Yeah, no team can hang with them offensively right now. So when I think about that, I just think, what do the Lakers have to do to hang with the Blazers offensively? And I don't know what it is. I think Danny Green has to shoot 50% from 3. I think Caruso has to knock down a lot of his shots. I think JR and Dion Waiters have to be huge pieces of the puzzle for the Lakers this first round. I just feel like if the Blazers keep doing what they're doing, they have a legit shot to win it. And by doing what they do, I mean, yeah, Damian Lillard trusting his teammates, but, maybe 2 games him exploding for 50. Definitely wouldn't mind that. McCollum's play is fucking huge. He had, I think it was like 2 games in a row where he was not playing well. He wasn't moving well. And, they struggled those games, and they struggled every game. So, that's kind of stupid to say. But, those last 2 games where he had it, he was a huge piece down the stretch and scoring for them when teams were doubling Lillard, when teams were, not letting him get to the half court before seeing 2 bodies on him. So I think CJ is obviously going to be huge. And I said it before, but I think Hassan Whiteside is going to be a huge, huge piece in this series for Portland. And if he plays well, and by playing well, I mean if he is focused, if he's energized, if he is concentrated and just knows what he's in there to do, which is grab rebounds, play defense. I think he's a little better offensively than people give him credit for, even though sometimes he takes some stupid shots and it drives me fucking crazy. But I think Whiteside is going to be a huge piece. So how the Blazers can win this series, I would just say keep doing what you're doing, score offensively, put up 130 points a game, and make the Lakers match that. Make LeBron put up 40, make Anthony Davis put up 40, and make their bench, or not their bench, make the rest of their team put up 40.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How do you think they're going to be guarding Dame? Do you think they're going to come out with a double?
That's a good question. To be honest with you, I feel like when teams have been doubling him, it's been successful. So I kind of hope that they don't. And they still went 6-2. He still did his thing, but I do think they're going to double him. Maybe not at half court or anything like that, but I think definitely on the screen. They're not going to let him walk into those threes, even if they're 30-foot threes. They're not going to let him walk into those right off the screen. I think they'll definitely pressure him or blitz him, as Stan Van Gundy was saying on the broadcast. And, yeah, I think they'll probably make someone else beat them, just like we're saying, get the ball out of LeBron's hands and AD's hands, make Jared Dudley beat the Blazers. So I think they'll get the ball out of their hands. I think just this environment, it suits Portland so much because they're fucking hoopers. They're guys who hoop. They put the ball in the basket. Melo, CJ. So I think when the Lakers do get the ball out of Dame's hands, from what we've seen in the bubble so far, I feel like Melo and CJ will be able to take care of business for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? How do you think they're gonna play him?
I honestly, I think they're gonna start off just seeing how it goes, man on man, and I think the doubles are more effective late in the game because with Lillard passing out the doubles, if you're in the first half when everyone has their legs, everyone's energized, Melo and CJ and Gary Trent, if they're getting open looks, they're gonna hit him. And I think when you said the doubles were working, it was like that fourth quarter of that Brooklyn game, and they were tired as hell, and they weren't scoring, but they were getting looks that they normally make. So I'd actually say I think they played great when Lillard was doubled. It just wasn't on the scoreboard that specific day. But if they get those looks, I could see them hitting them another day.
Yeah, for sure. And one more thing on those double teams is like, it just, when it first happens, I feel like it takes the Blazers unnecessarily long to adapt to it. Mm-hmm. I feel like as soon as they double Dame, it's like for 2 or 3 or 4 possessions in a row, the Blazers are like, holy shit, what do we do? And they have to adjust quicker. I feel like that happens in the third quarter. In the first quarter, maybe they don't. And then in the third quarter, that comes out, and then the Blazers are like, holy shit, what is this? Like, what's a double team? And it's like, you've seen this 4 straight games. Like, how can you not adjust by now? But yeah, I just think do what you do offensively, make the Lakers put up 120 points a game. See if they could do it, because they have not looked fucking good so far in the bubble. Obviously, they're gonna turn it on now that it's the playoffs. But
yeah, of course.
In the same token, LeBron last year activated playoff mode, and they still missed the playoffs. So,
nice. I mean, LeBron's the best or the second best, up to debate, player of all time, but he's like Melo. He's getting up there, and you can't put up the 2013 or that 2018 run production for the rest of your life. There's a time where he's going to slow down, and it could be this year. You never know.
Let's hope it is. Let's put that out there. All right, cool. So we talked about the Lakers side, the Blazers side. Now, Evan, I'd like to hear your prediction and why.
I think for Game 1, I honestly have Portland. I just think they're playing too well now, and they care so much. I followed so many different of these Melo teams, and when I just see those Trailblazers posts from inside the locker room, they really, all of them care about each other. They want to win, and they've been playing like it. They're playing with a sense of urgency that other teams are not playing with. And like we said, not a normal 8 seed. It's not a surprise if Portland wins. There's a shot. And I just don't think, like you said, the Lakers can keep up with the production on the offensive side.
So you talked about we want a series prediction.
Oh, series, not just. Yeah. I thought you meant for tomorrow.
No, we want. You think it's going to be Lakers in 6, Blazers in
I think it's going to be Lakers in 6 or 7, because I think LeBron teams. I think they're just going to adjust well, and that's what I was saying. I think Portland's going to come out tomorrow and scare the fuck out of them, and I think the Lakers are a smart team. They're well coached. They got smart basketball minds in LeBron and Davis, and I think LeBron, I hate to say it, but LeBron just always finds a way. Unless you're going up against a Golden State super team, he hasn't lost in the first round, I don't think, in his career yet, right?
Not that I know of.
And I hate to switch. I feel like I'm just switching up. I'm just, but
no, we're putting this out there, so I want to know how you think. So you think, but we need 6 or 7. Which one is it?
I'm going 7. I think it's a full series.
Okay. So Lakers in 7. I'm going to go Blazers in 7. Like everything you said, completely fair. LeBron, Anthony Davis, they have Frank Vogel, who I think is a good coach. All those years with Indiana, did a really good job, and I think he's good. They have a lot of Jason Kidd on the assistant staff, a lot of people like that. And I'm kind of hoping that this happens. So I'm expecting it because I'm hoping it. Like you said, Blazers are on a fucking mission. Everybody from Dame to Melo to Nurk to CJ to Gary Trent, all these dudes are just so focused. locked in, and productive. It would be one thing if, they're going out there and they're putting up 90 points a game and losing games. They are all so dialed in right now. They could have won 8-0, 9-0. Like, there was a chance they could have beat the Celtics in that game 100%. Where they almost came back. And then what was the thing? Oh yeah, the fucking Clippers game.
Oh yeah. But honestly, I think in the long run, that Clippers game did more good than harm.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Yeah. It set Dame off. So I believe in Dame, man. Like, being a Knicks fan all these years and a Melo fan, you kind of always expect the worst. And
I think,
when Melo missed that 3, for example, against Brooklyn with like 15 seconds left, I was like, Karis LeVert is coming down. He's hitting the shot, and the Blazers are done. And he missed it.
No one, like Knicks fans, understands what you mean by that. It was watching every Knicks game for about like 7 years. Like, it becomes natural. It feels like it's written. Like, it doesn't feel like it's chance. It feels like they missed the shot and then they lose the buzzer beater. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So that's what's giving me hope, that we're not talking about the Knicks. We're not talking about J.R. Smith. We're not talking about Amari. We're not talking about Porzingis. We're talking about Damian Lillard, who right now he's the best player in the league. He just won Bubble MVP. No one is on his level, like, at this moment.
Completely agree.
And then you have CJ. If CJ can be healthy, obviously that would be huge. You have Melo, who, I don't know why, like you commented, I think it was on one of our posts today, I don't know why people are surprised by this, by him doing all this shit. It's like, you have Carmelo Anthony, he's a top 15 scorer of all time. He'll be top 10 at the very least when it's all said and done. Mm-hmm. I just, again, the Blazers are so hot. They are on such a mission right now. It's hard to see a team like the Lakers keeping up with them offensively. And the Lakers have a good defense. They're one of the better defensive teams in the league. But the Blazers played some good defensive teams in these 8 games, and they beat them. And maybe they didn't beat the Celtics. They didn't beat the Clippers, but, like, they were right there. So
they could have.
In a 7-game series, I think Dame goes off a couple games. Obviously, CJ will have his points. Melo will have some big games. And I just feel like it's the perfect storm for the Blazers in terms of them being all on the same page and all hot at the right time. And then the Lakers just losing Bradley, losing Rondo. They really haven't been able to get in a rhythm in this bubble. So I'm going Portland in 7.
And I think you actually just said it best, and I think that's how I feel that way about the Lakers. Being that Knicks fan for so long, it's hard to imagine not being disappointed.
Right.
And that's like we talked about it. I clearly am not like, oh, it's Lakers and set like it's in tomorrow. I could see how they play and have a totally different opinion. And I want to be proven. I want to not be disappointed. Let's just say that.
Fair. So all right, let me ask you this then. Are you picking Lakers in 7 so you are not disappointed?
Oh, so it's like insurance. So it's like.
Yeah. Is that what you're trying to do here, dude?
Honestly, yeah. So it's like, I can't. You can't just expect the best when you've been.
I'm right. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is a different team. A different player is leading them, so it's just so different right now.
Exactly. It's an unfair thing I'm saying.
Yeah. All right, cool. Second to last question. I just made a hype video, so for everyone who's watching this on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, head to our Instagram or Twitter at CTRL Narrative, and you'll see kind of the hype video I made for this matchup. It's not the lovey-dovey Melo-LeBron friendship over all these years, last chapter, none of that bullshit. We're not rolling with that narrative here. The narrative we're rolling with is that LeBron has been the chosen one since day one. He got Rookie of the Year over Melo when, at the very least, it should have been co-Rookie of the Year because Melo's team made the playoffs in the West while the Cavs missed the playoffs in the East. I'm not going to get too far into that, but since day one, LeBron was the chosen one. Last summer, we know that the Lakers went after Kawhi. They did not get Kawhi Leonard, so they had to fill up their roster. They filled up the roster with guys like JaVale McGee, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jared Dudley. Who else? Who else can we throw in there? Rondo. I think Rondo was last summer. Maybe he was on there the year before. Just dude, Danny Green, another one. Quinn Cook. So guys like this, when they had
Marcus Cousins.
I did not say that, but that's a great point. Totally forgot about him. So they filled up their roster because they had 4 players on their roster going into free agency. It was LeBron, Anthony Davis, Caruso, and Kuzma. 4 players. It's not like they needed a role player who wouldn't shoot, who wouldn't complain about not shooting or not playing. So the whole Jared Dudley thing, missed me with that. The question I have for you is, should LeBron have tried harder to get LA to sign Melo last summer, or do you feel like that's out of LeBron's hands? That's not his job. His job is just to play, and that has nothing to do with him.
I think it would be pretty naive to say that's not in LeBron's power to get the players he wants. So I'm going with he had all the power in the world, and I don't even think I back then I might have been angry, but now, especially with all the success, I don't even think of it as an angry thing. I just think of it of how stupid the Lakers and LeBron were, and they clearly, such as everyone else, bought into the narrative that he wouldn't accept his role, all this stuff that the media said that he didn't. And yeah, LeBron at the end of the day did not trust Carmelo.
And that's crazy. Like what you just said, LeBron at the end of the day did not trust Melo after knowing each other they met in 2003 or 2002. I want to say 2002. So for like 17 years. But yeah, I agree. I think that LeBron obviously, reports came out. Rob Pelinka said I was talking to Anthony Davis and LeBron about free agents. So they obviously signed off on a Jared Dudley, and while Carmelo Anthony was out there, which is crazy. There was another thing you just said that I thought was really interesting. Yeah, so the thing about it that is so crazy is the Lakers would kill for a guy like Melo right now. They would kill for that. Their third option this year has been Kyle Kuzma. He hasn't been terrible, but I don't think he's taken that next step that they were really hoping him to take. And again, he's decent, but they are missing that third scorer, that guy who they can kick it to and rely on him to hit a shot, the guy that can get his own shot, just the third scorer in general. And I just think about what that team would have been all year, and like they're the number 1 seed, so you can't really say too much, but with Melo on that team. But at the same time, I think everything happens for a reason, because say he goes there, he gets less touches. He obviously doesn't look as good as he does in Portland, where they are really featuring him. There were a couple games in the bubble where they were running the offense through Melo for like 3 or 4 straight possessions, which took me back to the Knicks days, especially when he was kicking it to a guy like Mario Hezonja, who was bricking threes and shit like that. But yeah, LeBron should have tried harder. I'm mad that he didn't, but in retrospect, I'm not, because I think Melo just fell into the perfect spot in Portland. And should he have signed there a few years ago? Probably, but better late than never.
And I think I wanted to talk about that earlier, the running the plays for Carmelo. There's this play against the Clippers, and I'm honestly not sure if they stopped running it because they switched up and they figured out what was happening, but they had Carmelo in that post-up position, the low block, and they set a screen and they had Carmelo curl the hoop, and he got those 2 like open dunks against the Clippers.
Oh, and yeah, I know.
I'd love to see them. And I'm not a basketball coach. I mean, I know a decent amount, but I'm not sure how you create that. But if they could figure that play out again, I love seeing that.
Yeah, I know exactly the play that you're talking about. Yeah, I think it was in like multiple games too. I don't think it was just in one game.
I think you're right, but it was definitely the most prominent that game where he had that wide open dunk, no one under the basket.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. All right, Evan. So we've come to the end of this episode in this podcast. At the end, we always allow our guests to control a narrative. It doesn't have to be Melo. It doesn't have to be basketball. It doesn't have to be sports. Literally just whatever narrative you want to control. So I'm going to give you the floor and kind of let you say your piece on whatever you want.
I got to stick with Carmelo. Got to stick that. I got to just say that he's more than just a scorer. I think anyone who knows the game of basketball can say that. And we saw in Houston that steal on Harden and then that block on PJ Tucker in the corner three, and then stealing it from Luka, stealing it from all the stars. And Portland would not be where they are today without Carmelo. They would not be in the playoffs without Carmelo. Lillard has been incredible, CJ great, but at the end of the day, if Portland didn't sign the superstar that is Carmelo Anthony, the legendary player, they would not be in the playoffs. And that is not just because of his scoring, it's because of his passing. Yes, his passing, because anytime I see him get doubled, he gives it up. When that second guy comes in the post, he gets a wide open shot for his teammate. And there's a reason people like you and me are so passionate about this. This type of fan base, this like intellectual like analysis of a player, you don't get from players that are treated right. He has not gotten the respect of being a legendary player that he is, and that's why we're here today.
Yep. Very well put, man. There's nothing else I could add to that. I think maybe the only thing I would add is he's more than just a scorer, even at 36.
Yes. Yeah, of course. We're talking about this bubble.
He's been playing great defense. Let me take that back. He hasn't been playing great defense for years. He's been playing good defense for years, and he's still playing good defense even at 36. So
he's not a liability.
Exactly.
And that's how they portrayed him as. He was a defensive liability.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Very well put, though. Good control of that narrative right there, man. Cool, dude. Well, yeah, that's the end. Just want to take some time to say thanks for hopping on, even on kind of short notice, and getting ready for this Lakers Lakers series. Should be fun. This should be one that we talk about for a while, and hopefully in a positive light with Melo beating LeBron, Blazers beating the Lakers, and hopefully en route to Melo's first championship, and hopefully we'll have semifinals, conference final. Hopefully we'll have 3 more series preview episodes to come. So appreciate you taking the time out.
Thanks so much for having me. And lastly, let's just say this ain't a damn farewell tour.
This ain't a damn farewell tour. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, good seeing you.
Yes.